My name is Rachel Kaplan, and I've been a Bikram yoga instructor for 3 years. I started Bikram my last year in college. It was 2005. I was working at a newspaper, and a colleague friend of mine suggested I go take a Bikram class because I was always athletic. I've always done sports. I've danced. I did everything. And we were working at this job together, and she suggested I try Bikram, and I was like, well, what's that? It's a yoga, hot yoga class, and I never did yoga before, or hot yoga for that matter, so I said, sure, why not? I always like challenges and stuff like that. I have kind of a type A personality. I went to my first class, and my first teacher was Olivia, and it was intense. I'm trying to think back of it into it now, and I remember trying all the postures and definitely sitting down, taking breaks. But I remember just loving it off the bat. It was something really intense. It reminded me of dance class because I felt like I was going into that zone, right, into that world that I had when I was dancing, and I hadn't revisited those feelings in a long time, so that was great. It brought me back to that. And I knew that I was limited in my flexibility and my strength and all these things, but yet I had a strong body, and I was young. I was 21. I definitely had this is a crazy thing, more until the first year of my practice, when I was starting to do it every other day. I first started doing it every other day. I remember I bought a 10 class card, and I was doing 10 class cards for a while, and then Raphael was the one that suggested, well, why don't you do a month, because you're coming quite often. So I tried the unlimited monthly, and I really started to get into it. When I started really getting into it more and more, I had this is a crazy thing. What am I doing to myself? Why am I here? Why torturing yourself for 90 minutes in a hot room? What am I doing? What's the point? And the point now that I understand that, and I'm teaching for a while too, is it's not in the moment. It's years down the line, all those benefits that you get after a long term of practicing and stuff like that. So. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've had those. This is a crazy moment. Plenty of those. Sometimes still do. Okay, so Bikram Chowdhury. He's crazy. Awesome energy, and awesome in the real word of the sense. Awesome, not just oh, that's awesome, but really awesome. Okay. Recently, I went to recertification this year. I went with Georgia and Raphael and Palin. Those are my superiors, and I look up to them. And he was teaching class, and it was third part of awkward. And third part of awkward, you sit down with your knees, and you bounce, and you bounce, and you bounce, and you bounce, and you bounce. Well, he was on the podium bouncing up and down, up and down, up and down, but off the floor, up and down, with his knees and his arms out, and he's going crazy, and he freeze. And he literally just froze. But he was bouncing like a jackrabbit all over the podium. I swear that I thought he was going to fall. And then he just froze. And he stopped. And he's just this ball. He doesn't stop, Bikram. He does not stop. And it's just proof that a human being, has that amount of energy. He does not sleep. He does not eat. He's just absolutely crazy. And that moment I was like, wow, because it was during class, and we're all killing ourselves, and here's this crazy person on the podium just totally bouncing up and down off the floor in this position. And that was one of my favorite Bikram moments. Okay, well, yeah, I'm a teacher full time. I teach 10 classes a week, 2 every day, and sometimes I pick up on the weekends, so I'll teach a couple more. But outside of Bikram, I really love to read. I love to sit in the sun. I love to go to the beach. I like to chill. But I support my boyfriend Damien. He is a photographer, and he's into fashion photography, and he does works in New York City, and so he's a fantastic photographer, and I love helping him with his craft. So recently I've taken the position of repping him, so now I'm also a photo rep on top of a yoga instructor, which is fun. And, my mom was an artist, my father's a musician. I've always had art around me, so I've always appreciated art. So I have a special place in my life for art. And it's awesome that I'm with somebody who is an artist, and I can help him, and I totally believe in him, and I think he's amazing at it. And so it's fun for me, and I really enjoy it. Yeah, so I met my beau in Bikram class. It was Georgia. It was at Midtown, Bikram Yoga NYC, Midtown, and it was I think it was a Sunday morning, like 10 a.m. class, and I went in to take class, and Georgia was teaching, and this guy, Damien, was also in the room, and it was great. She set him up next to me because I remember he was afraid of the heat. So he loved setting up by the door. He still does. Sets up by the door. And that day, Georgia asked him to move closer to me, and I raised my hand. She said, "Why don't you go next to Rachel in the front row?" So he moves next to me, and the whole class, Georgia was like, "Rachel this, Damien that, Rachel this, Damien that." So by the end of the class, we knew each other's names, and of course we were checking each other out, because he's hot, and whatever. So, and that's what you do because people are half naked sweating, and that's what happens. So afterwards, he waited for me and gave me his card. He was very nice. He put the ball in my court, and that was the end of that. 2 years later, we're still together. And now he's taking my class. In Raphael's class, Raphael Pachiti, who's the director of Bikram Yoga Manhattan, owner, in his class in Old Soho, I knew I wanted to teach this yoga. It was just one of his, actually, it was a moment. I was in Camel. Okay, here's a perfect crazy moment. It just came to me. This is crazy moment. I was in Camel, and it was second set of Camel, and I was absolutely killing myself. It was hotter than hell in the room. And I had to come out early because I couldn't breathe. I came out huffing and puffing. I totally lost my breath, hyperventilating, couldn't breathe, couldn't find the breath. The room was turning and spinning, and it was turning black, and I was literally thought it was dying. And Raphael comes over, puts his hand on my shoulder, and says, "It's about time." And I stopped, immediately freaking out, found my breath, and was like, oh. And I don't know, something about that moment that I knew that, you have to go through hell to get to the heaven. I mean, it's like that Bikram saying, and it just resonated with me. And, I knew I was changing, not just physically, but spiritually, and also just in the way that I was thinking in my day-to-day. Because we're all raised with a certain way of being raised, and we're all wired a certain way, and Bikram kind of rewires you in a way. It was like this amazing transformation of, I'm starting to get to know who Rachel is, not who I've always thought I was in the world. And I had a lot of insecurities and all this and that. And anyway, Bikram really helped me with all of that. And it was during Raphael's class, I knew I wanted to teach this yoga because I can feel myself changing, and I just wanted to show everybody, especially my loved ones, that they could change too. That they didn't have to accept their limitations, that they could do something about it. And it really wasn't that difficult. It was just about saying when and going into the room and trying it, And so Raphael was a huge inspiration, along with Georgia and Paola and the whole team. I mean,